Hey everyone, Michelle Venus here again, talking to you. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Thanks so much for visiting my channel, for supporting my work once again. Just a reminder that we're doing a pretty big project here, as I mentioned in the other videos. Yeah, the channel is just starting out, so all of this is still very experimental, but thanks for your trust. If you like it, like, comment, share. Don't forget to give me that support here, okay? It's really important for the channel's growth. Leave a comment. Like I said, it's one of the first videos, so post your questions here. Help me, give me feedback, help me build the channel, okay? Always remembering that our niche here is anatomy and fashion, meaning character design and costume design. So leave comments and send your questions within this niche, okay? We're not going to stray from this on the channel, which is the channel specialization. And let's keep going now to another part of our project. All right, let's go. Let's go now to the character's hair and beard. Well, folks, I always use the same approach, right? I start by laying things out. I do an initial layout, a first sketch. Always, if the character has this thing where both sides are the same, I do one side and then I duplicate the other if necessary, like with the hair here. Really only if the hair ends up looking very different from one side to the other, but you saw that here, in this case, I mirrored it and then I make adjustments. I like things to be symmetrical, I've mentioned that before. I'm also using a reference here to do the hair. So I do the first layout, right? Which is basically the shape of the drawing of the object we're drawing. And then within that shape, I start making variations, right? Especially because it's hair, and hair, there's a lot of it. Sometimes it's uniform, sometimes it's not, right? It's totally, it doesn't have any real shape, like it's independent. It might have a mass that gives it some shape, but really it's made up of strands, one strand on top of another. And that's how I do it. I do one strand at a time. I draw the hair strand by strand, as you can see here, always following a reference. With hair, for sure, you need a reference to follow, at least in my opinion, precisely because it's kind of complex to do since there are so many details. So if you don't have a guide, if you don't have a reference, it gets really difficult, especially for the way the hair falls. It's always good to have a reference. I use references for everything, really everything. I advise you to do the same. So I'm going to do it here, strand by strand, always paying attention, more or less. Hair is a bunch of strands tangled up with each other, entwined with each other. In short, it gets a bit confusing, maybe sometimes even when you're using a reference, but try to look at it strand by strand, try to see the strands in the reference itself, okay? It doesn't have to be exactly the same, because if you try to make it identical, at least for me, if I try to do strand by strand exactly the same, well, there's just no way. I really can't do it, and I don't even have the patience, but I try to see the strands, okay? And to divide them within this shape, this first layout that we created. So what I do here is I take more than one reference, sometimes for the hair, for example. Sometimes the character's hair doesn't have a nice flow, it doesn't fall naturally. So on the shoulder, I grab another reference because hair is very amorphous, right? So you can improvise a bit. Sometimes you take the top of the head from one reference and make the strands fall like in another reference, and so on. You just need to know how to blend things together. Just know how to interpret what you're doing, okay? And then I keep defining these strands more and more, you see? This hair, guys, you'll see it later in the other videos. This character here has other hairstyles because I kept testing to see which one was best, and I ended up with this one here. Okay? First, I I grabbed a lot of references, I looked at tied up hair, more voluminous hair, and I believe this one had a nice flow. This was the one I liked the most, so that's the one I'm using. Since it's a man, guys, I use references of men with long hair because sometimes you can use women's hair as a reference, right? You can, but women always tend to have hair that, I don't know, at least that's the impression I get. Women's hair is more, even if it's from a woman, actually, even if you just take the hair by itself, it seems like if you take it from a woman and put it on a man, it ends up looking kind of feminine, a bit effeminate, which isn't the case here. So I always like to even work with the right genders. I rarely take a woman's hair and put it on a man and vice versa. Okay? Also, if you look at a photo, women's hair is much silkier, more styled. It's much better cared for than men's hair, if you notice. The strands are much more defined, the curls are more defined, or the waves, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Men, on the other hand, are a bit more careless with their hair. Of course, nothing stops you from making a man's hair look well groomed, but that's generally the rule. That's how it is, okay? So that's how I do it. And then within each strand, I start drawing the individual hairs. Always be careful with the composition of these strands, these lines that represent the hair, so to speak. Always keep it balanced, okay? Each strand needs to have a number of lines that will harmonize with the rest. You can't put too many lines in one strand and then fewer in another. You'll see that it doesn't look good. The composition turns out poorly. And all of this here, folks, since we're working in Photoshop, I'm doing it layer by layer, everything separated. I make the first layout separately, the initial sketch as a separate layer, then the definition of the strands on another layer, and then these individual hairs on yet another layer. So I have the freedom to adjust things later. Afterwards, imagine you draw these hairs, then you realize it didn't work out and you'll have to erase everything. That doesn't work. And then you eventually end up erasing those strand lines, and to fix it properly, the hair really has to look as natural as it possibly can, with a very natural flow. It needs to convey a sense of softness and significant volume, okay? It is all about the details, and this applies even to the line work. The function of the line is important because if the line is too strong or too pronounced, it doesn't convey softness, it doesn't convey it. It's a silk texture, something silky, very well cared for, okay? And so we've done this part here. We'll do the crown later, all right? I'm just measuring here because I need to because I need to see how it's going to look. So I'm going to do a test here, for example, because the crown is going to press down, right? The hair here without the crown is more voluminous. With the crown, well, then it's going to squeeze the hair, right? Of course, what I'm going to do now is a quick test right here. I'll go ahead and redraw these individual strands just to see exactly how it looks, even though it might take a moment to get it right. Even though it is, you'll see that I'm going to choose another solution here, but just so you can see the way I would do it, because when the drawing is finished, you'll see that I made the character the way I like to do it, both without the crown and with the crown. But even with the crown, the hair pressed down by the crown still looks good. It's not that it turned out bad, okay? But I think that since it lost a bit of the hair's volume, as you'll see here, I think it lost a bit of its charm, It lost a bit of the grandeur of this really authoritative expression. I don't know, he has a certain charm with this voluminous hair, right? So I ended up leaving it that way. I'm going to do it here. I'm squeezing the hair for you guys to take a look, okay? So you can see how it turns out. See how good it is to have separated everything into layers, into sections, how good it is to have separated the lines of the strands, the locks, everything, because if you don't, man, you'll get lost and end up ruining the drawing. Got it? Even the intensity of the line in the definition of the drawing already conveys volume, it conveys silkiness, So that's why you have to keep it separated. Look, see, I put it there. It ended up squeezed in there. It didn't turn out bad, right? Guys, at least I don't think it turned out bad. But I'm going to do the beard, okay? Don't worry here. But I think that look there, see? Didn't it give it a nicer charm? With the individual hair strands going a bit over the top crown area, I really think it gives the whole look a much nicer charm, and it also adds some extra volume. Well, folks, now we're going to move on to the beard here. The beard here, it's already a bit done. Actually, it already has the shape, but it's that same process. But you'll see that I'm going to erase it here, and then you'll see how I do it. Always half of the beard first, and then I duplicate it, okay? To do it, you saw that I don't follow the jawline layout here, right? Because the beard is hair. It's hair that grows and gives a different shape to the jawline, right? It makes it look fuller, more squared, longer. Obviously, so you can see here that I do one side and then duplicate it. The first shape is what I like to do first, always neat and symmetrical. And then if I need to make a modification, I make the changes here. I'll do it on the strands, right? The drawing of the strands. When we clean it up, you'll see that I'll really focus on the mustache and the beard. Here, I'm just drawing these strands really to give myself an idea so I can really understand how it looks in the line work, how the volume turns out, if it matches the hair, which was that beard that was already there at the beginning, and now I'm adding the beard for you to see, but that's it, okay? Well, folks, that's the end of our video on beard and hair. Another part of our character. I hope you guys liked it. Later, when we go to clean up the character, clean up the lines, add light and shadow, add color, when we clean up the character the way we say it, right? We do the line art. You'll see that I'll add much more detail to the strands, the hair, the beard. It won't stay like this. And then we'll keep sharing ideas, all right? Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Once again, respectful comments. Ask your questions within our channel's niche, okay? Guys, thank you so much. Thanks. See you later. Bye-bye.